Welcome to the Seatrade Maritime Podcast. In the first of our bonus episodes for the Market's Outlook, we are joined by Adam Kent from Maritime Strategies International with a macroeconomic overview of the shipping market. Welcome back to the podcast, Adam, and if you could set the scene for our listeners as we head into 2025, what are the big themes ahead?
Hi Marcus, and thank you for having us back. Before we look at 2025, it's probably worth just casting our eye back over 2024. And as a whole, it was another positive year for the shipping markets, with many shipping sectors continuing to do well on average. Cargo growth was positive pretty much across the board, and ton-mile impacts, especially due to the Red Sea, continue to support earnings across the board. For some sectors, we actually saw earnings or values or both increase by over 50% over the course of last year, most notably for the containers and for offshore. And it really was just LNG where we saw earnings and values fall off year on year. At the back end of 2024, we did start seeing softening, however, on dry bulk and tankers, and that may be a theme that we will explore further within this podcast. As we look through into 2025, we do expect the global economy to be relatively steady, sort of a similar level to 2024. Global GDP growth of around 2.7%, though we would say that the risks, I guess, are increasingly looking on the downside. Of course, in the US, we're going to be faced with another second Trump administration coming to power in January. That does have the potential to introduce some macroeconomic shifts, and some of them might come quite rapidly, given what we saw during the first Trump administration. Tariffs, of course, have already been mentioned a number of times, and these will have an impact on trade if they come to fruition. Though the levels mentioned so far, we don't think will be too disastrous for Chinese export volumes to the US. Though, again, that situation could change quite rapidly. We have, of course, been in this Trump environment and tariff environment before. Workarounds were found by the supply chains, and we do expect to see some of those workarounds come to the fore once more as we move through into 2025 and into 2026. Chinese economy still remains sort of in the doldrums, but we are seeing some signs of improvements. And further policy easing and stimulus will sort of undoubtedly help the economy in 2025. Whereas on the flip side, the European economy is probably best described as fragile as we come into 2025. More broadly, from a shipping perspective, we do think that this year will be another year when we see cargo growth firing on all cylinders, with positive growth across the board, across all sectors. Little to suggest currently that the Red Sea situation is likely to find a resolution anytime soon. And we now think that this will continue across 2025, and we'll see the same level of diversions around the Cape of Good Hope as we saw in 2024. That will, of course, remain positive from a ton-mile perspective, but we don't expect to see any net incremental gains from that diversion. Everything that will go around the Cape of Good Hope is going to go around the Cape of Good Hope, and that's already baked in. We did see another barrage of orders in 2024 at the shipyards, and this year, 2025, we do expect to see deliveries starting to creep up. That will start putting some pressure on supply-demand balances, and that's probably a theme that we will expect to see continue, not only this year in 2025, but also in 2026, 27, and 2028. So this is sort of the start of a wave of new deliveries that sort of began in partway through 2024. We're now firmly sort of riding that wave for the next 3 years. So hopefully that sort of gives a sort of nice broad overview of where the markets have been last year and where we're sitting as we're at the dawn of 2025, looking across the next 12 months.
Thanks, Adam. I think that gives a very good overview of what kind of the big factors we're looking at of the year to come. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Seatrade Maritime Podcast, make sure to subscribe on the app of your choice, and we look forward to joining you on the next episode.